I'm gonna say something right now that's gonna make a lot of people uncomfortable. For 10 years of my life, the person I trusted more than anyone else in this world was the one destroying me. The person I carried in my body. The person I fed, protected, raised with everything I had. My own son. For a decade, while I was trapped inside a body that wouldn't move, he violated me every single day. And the sickest part, he did it while pretending to be my caregiver. I know that sounds like something out of a nightmare, like some messed up movie plot. But this didn't happen in some dark alley or hidden basement. It happened in my own home. In a quiet American town. Under the same roof where I once kissed him goodnight and told him I loved him. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I'm 73 years old. And I live in Riverton, a small town where people wave at each other from their porches and think they know their neighbors. If you see me today, you'd never guess any of this. Most folks know me as Miss Ellie, the old lady at the weekend market, with jars of dried herbs and homemade teas. Talk slow. Smile a lot. I always ask how your knees are doing, or whether your sleep's been any better. People say I have a calming presence, that I make them feel safe. They have no idea what I survived to get here. Before I keep going, let me ask you something. Drop your name in the comments. Tell me where you're listening from. Not because I'm chasing numbers, but because this story isn't for everyone. It's for people strong enough to hear the truth, without turning away. I wasn't always this calm, quiet woman with a market stall. I used to work in a textile factory. Real work. Hard work. I spent decades hunched over a sewing machine, hands moving so fast they'd cramp by lunchtime. The factory sat on the edge of town, loud, hot, and filled with fabric dust that clung to your lungs. Most of us women there couldn't afford the clothes we made. But we showed up anyway. Every day. Because bills don't care how tired you are. I was 19 years old when I got pregnant. Too young. Too naive. Too hopeful. The father was charming at first. Promised me everything. When I told him I was pregnant, his whole face changed. He said he wasn't ready. Said he didn't want responsibility. Then he disappeared. No goodbye. No support. No second thought. That's when I learned my first hard lesson about life. You don't always get to choose who leaves. But you do choose who you become after. I named my son Daniel. The day he was born, I looked at his tiny face and made myself a promise. No matter how hard life gets, this child will never doubt that he is loved. Maybe I loved him too much. Raising Daniel alone wasn't easy. I worked long shifts, sometimes 2 jobs. I woke up before sunrise, packed lunches, caught buses across town. I'd come home exhausted, feet aching, hands stiff from work. But every night I made time for him. Homework at the kitchen table. Cartoons on the couch. Stories before bed. Weekends were for parks and ice cream. Even when money was tight, I saved every dollar. School supplies. Shoes when his feet grew. Winter jackets before the cold hit. I didn't date. Didn't go out. My world became one thing. Daniel. My own childhood hadn't been warm. My mother passed when I was young. My father was distant. Not cruel, just emotionally unavailable. I grew up without affection. So when I became a mother, I went the opposite direction. Hugged too much. Protected too fiercely. I wanted Daniel to grow up knowing he mattered. Looking back now, I wonder if that love crossed into indulgence. In school, Daniel was average. Not a troublemaker. Not a star student. Teachers described him as quiet, polite, well-behaved. Parent-teacher meetings were always the same. He keeps to himself. Very respectful. No concerns. I believed them. I believed I was doing everything right. For most of his childhood, Daniel was affectionate. He helped around the house, took out the trash, mowed the lawn. He told me he loved me, said when he grew up, he'd take care of me, the way I took care of him. Those words kept me going on days. When my body felt like it was breaking down, I dreamed of a future where life slowed down for both of us. Had no idea what was quietly growing inside him. The change didn't happen overnight. Never does. Daniel turned 18, and something shifted. First, it was subtle. The way his eyes followed me a little too long. If I walked from the bathroom to my bedroom, wrapped in a towel, I'd feel it. That uncomfortable awareness of being watched. When I turned around, he'd suddenly look away. I told myself I was imagining things. I worked too much. I was tired. That's what exhaustion does, right? Then the affection changed. Hugs lasted longer. Too long. He stood closer than necessary. Touched my arm when he talked. Once while I was cooking, he came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. I stiffened. "Daniel," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Don't do that." He laughed. "What? I can't hug my own mom." That sentence shut me down. Because how do you argue with that? Without sounding crazy. That was how it started. Not with violence. Not with threats. With confusion. With doubt. With me questioning my own instincts. And that was only the beginning. After Daniel turned 18, the house didn't feel the same anymore. Nothing obvious changed. No slammed doors. No shouting. That's what made it harder to explain. It was the air. The tension. Like walking into a room right after an argument. Even when no words were spoken. I started catching myself planning my movements. If I needed to shower, I waited until I knew he was out. If I changed clothes, I locked the bathroom door. Even though we'd never locked doors from each other before. I hated myself for it. This was my son. Child I raised. Why did I feel like this? One evening I came home late from work. My back was killing me. My hands were numb. Daniel was sitting on the couch. TV on, lights low. "You look exhausted," he said. "Sit down. I'll rub your shoulders." I hesitated. Then I told myself I was being ridiculous. He was right. I was exhausted. First it felt normal. His hands pressed into my shoulders. Slow, steady. Then they moved. Down my arms. Across my upper back. Too slow. Too deliberate. My body tensed. "That's enough," I said. He stopped instantly. Pulled his hands back like he'd been burned. "Wow," he laughed. "You're really overthinking things." The way he said it, calm, amused, made me feel embarrassed. Like I had crossed a line. That became the pattern. Something uncomfortable would happen. I'd react. And he'd flip it. "You're stressed. You're tired. You're imagining stuff." He never raised his voice. Never got angry. He stayed calm. Which somehow made me feel crazier. He stopped knocking. Just walked into my room whenever he felt like it. If I was changing, he didn't turn around right away. He'd talk. About his day. About nothing important. I'd pull clothes over myself. Heart pounding. "Can you knock?" I finally said once. He looked offended. "This is my house too." And technically, he wasn't wrong. The guilt ate at me. I raised him to feel comfortable in his own home. Now I was treating him like a stranger. Or worse, like a threat. I didn't want to be that kind of mother. So I swallowed my instincts. Again. Then came the night that still makes my chest tighten. It was raining hard. Thunder shaking the windows. Daniel came into my room after midnight. Said he had a nightmare. Said he was scared. He stood there in the doorway. Looking smaller than usual. For a second, I saw my little boy again. The one who used to crawl into my bed. When storms scared him. "Just for tonight," he said. "I won't sleep." I hesitated. Then I nodded. I don't remember falling asleep. But I remember waking up. His body was pressed against mine. Too close. His arm across my waist. His hand resting on my thigh. Froze. Didn't breathe. Didn't move. I whispered his name. No response. I pushed his arm away. He rolled over like he was dead asleep. The rest of the night, I stared at the ceiling. In the morning, I brought it up. Tried to sound calm. Tried not to accuse. He looked genuinely confused. What are you talking about? That never happened. He said it so confidently. I started doubting myself. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe my body filled in blanks. He added one more thing. The thing that sealed it. You've been working too hard, Mom. Stress messes with your head. I apologized. I still hate myself for that. After that, I stopped sleeping well. I lost weight. My hands shook sometimes for no reason. At work, my vision blurred. Blamed age. Overwork. Anything but the truth. Daniel started touching more casually. Hand on my lower back. Fingers brushing my arm. Standing too close. Always subtle. Always deniable. And every time I pulled away, he looked hurt. Like I was rejecting him. I thought about asking for help. But help from who? Friends would say I was imagining things. Co-workers would think I was sick. And how do you even say it out loud? My son makes me uncomfortable. That sentence alone sounded insane. The night before everything collapsed, we argued. Not loudly. But it was real. I told him I needed space. That boundaries mattered. He stared at me for a long time. Then he smiled. I'd do anything for you, Mom, he said. You know that, right? Something in his tone made my stomach drop. It didn't sound loving. It sounded possessive. The next morning, I woke up early, sat at my sewing machine, focused on my work, trying to feel normal. Then the pain hit. Dark, violent, like lightning through my head. My vision tilted. The room spun. I tried to stand. My left side collapsed. The last thing I remember was Daniel's footsteps running toward me, and his voice saying, "Don't worry, Mom. I've got you." When I woke up, the world felt wrong. Not blurry, tilted, like someone had picked up reality and shook it just enough to knock everything out of place. There was a beeping sound. Low, steady. White lights burned my eyes. I tried to move. Nothing happened. Panic rushed through me so fast. I thought my chest would explode. I tried to lift my left arm. It didn't respond. I tried to speak. The words came out thick and broken. Like my mouth didn't recognize my thoughts anymore. A nurse leaned over me. "Ma'am, don't try to move. You're safe. You had a stroke." That word didn't make sense at first. Stroke. That happens to other people. Older people. Sick people. Not women who work 12-hour shifts and never missed a day. Daniel was standing at the foot of the bed. I hadn't even heard him come in. He looked calm. Calm. He reached for my good hand and squeezed it. "I told you I'd take care of you," he said. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. But I was too weak to react. Too weak to think. The next few days came in pieces. Doctors explaining brain scans. Nurses rolling me over. Machines keeping time. They said the stroke damaged the right side of my brain. That's why my left side wasn't working. They talked about recovery, physical therapy, occupational therapy. Words like progress and patience. I nodded like I understood. Inside I was screaming. Daniel never left. He slept in the chair beside my bed. Brought flowers. Spoke softly to the nurses. They adored him. "What a devoted son," one of them said. He smiled. I watched him play the role and felt something twist inside me. I hated being touched. Nurses were gentle, professional, quick. But every time someone moved my body, my heart raced. I flinched without meaning to. One nurse noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say everything. But Daniel was right there. Listening. Watching. So I nodded. The doctors said I could recover some movement with aggressive therapy. But they also said I'd need help at home. A lot of it. When they asked about living arrangements, Daniel answered before I could. "She'll stay with me," he said. "I'll take care of everything." They looked at me for confirmation. I hesitated. Just a second. Daniel's hand tightened around mine. He nodded. That was the moment. My world got smaller. The hospital discharged me 2 weeks later. I left in a wheelchair. half my body numb. My pride shattered. Daniel pushed me out the front doors. Sunlight hit my face. I remember thinking, this feels like the last normal moment of my life. Home didn't feel like home anymore. Furniture had been rearranged. My bed moved to the living room. Bathroom bars installed. Everything smelled different. Daniel said it was for convenience, for safety. I believed him. He needed to. The first night home, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow felt closer. Daniel slept on the couch, just in case I needed something. I stared at the ceiling and tried to convince myself I was lucky. So many people end up alone after strokes. At least I had family. The next morning, he helped me bathe. I hated every second of it, not because of pain, but because of helplessness. I couldn't wash myself, couldn't stand. He explained every step, like a nurse would, kept his voice neutral, professional. That should have made me feel better. Didn't. Afterward, he dressed me, picked my clothes, combed my hair, fed me breakfast. I felt like a child trapped in an adult body. A social worker visited that afternoon. She talked about home health aides. Daniel shut it down politely. She gets anxious around strangers, he said. It's better if I do it. The social worker looked at me. I wanted to scream, but my mouth betrayed me again. Words wouldn't come out right. So I nodded. Again. Days blurred together. Medication schedules. Exercises I barely understood. Pain that never fully left. Daniel managed everything. Appointments, bills, paperwork. He controlled my phone, email, my calendar. It's easier this way, he said. And I let him. Sometimes at night, he'd sit beside my bed, talk about the future, how he'd never leave me, how we'd always take care of each other. His voice would drop low, almost intimate. I stared straight ahead and waited for it to end. I kept telling myself, this is temporary. I'll get stronger. I'll get my life back. I didn't know yet that my recovery was the last thing he wanted. At first I thought recovery would bring freedom, that if I followed the exercises, if I pushed through the pain, I'd slowly get pieces of myself back. But what no one tells you about dependency is how quietly it can be weaponized. And Daniel learned that fast. The physical therapist came 3 times a week. Her name was Rachel. Mid-30s. Firm handshake. Kind but no nonsense. She talked directly to me, not over me. That alone made Daniel uncomfortable. Rachel noticed things. How tense I got when Daniel hovered. How I flinched when he adjusted my position. How I waited for his approval before answering. One afternoon after she left, Daniel shut the door harder than necessary. She's too rough, he said. She doesn't know what she's doing. The next day Rachel was gone. He said she cancelled. She never came back. The nurse followed soon after. Then the social worker stopped calling. Daniel said the insurance paperwork was a mess. Said he'd handle it. And just like that, the outside world disappeared. Baths started taking longer. What used to be 10 minutes turned into 30, then 40. He moved slower. No more. Explained things that didn't need explaining. I stared at the wall and counted breaths. When I asked him to hurry, he sighed. Relax, he said. You don't want to get bed sores, do you? That word, relax, became his favorite. Anytime I tensed, anytime I protested. Relax. Stop overthinking. Don't make this weird. I tried to speak up once. Tried to tell him I wanted a nurse again. His face changed. Not angry. Disappointed. You don't trust me, he asked. That question hit harder than a slap. 'Cause of course I trusted him. He was my son. Wasn't he? He started deciding things without asking. What I ate. When I slept. Which clothes I wore. He said routines were important. Doctors would agree, he claimed. I didn't know anymore what doctors actually said and what he just made up. Visitors stopped coming. Neighbors knocked. He told them I was resting. Old co-workers called. He said I wasn't feeling well enough to talk. My phone stayed on the kitchen counter, out of reach. If there's an emergency, I'll handle it, he said. Days passed, without hearing another voice, besides his. The first time he crossed the line, I didn't even realize it right away. I just knew something felt wrong. During a bath, his hands stayed where they didn't need to. Tensed. Daniel, I said quietly. He didn't stop. Instead, he leaned closer and lowered his voice. This is medical, he said. You don't know what you're feeling anymore. Something inside me broke. Because if he was right, then I had no ground to stand on. After that, it happened more often. Never rushed. Never violent. Always slow. Always disguised as care. And every time I reacted, he reminded me, you need me. You can't even walk. Who's gonna believe you? That sentence sealed my silence. At night, he sat beside my bed. Sometimes talked about memories. Sometimes about the future. How he gave up his life for me. How no one else would do that. The guilt crushed me. I felt like I owed him for existing. I tried once, just once, to push him away. Used all the strength I had. He caught my wrist easily. Didn't squeeze. Didn't hurt me. Just held it. And whispered. Careful. That was enough. From then on, I stopped resisting. Stopped reacting. Stopped hoping. I let my mind drift somewhere else. That's how you survive. When your body isn't yours anymore. Doctors' visits were performances. Daniel answered questions. Spoke for me. Joked with staff. They praised him. Called him devoted. Selfless. I sat there silent, watching the lie grow stronger. Years passed like this. Not days. Not months. Years. I aged faster than I should have. My hair thinned. My face changed. Inside I felt hollow. Like I was already gone. And no one noticed. Prayed every night. Not for justice. Not for revenge. Just for it to stop. And then one day, my voice came back. Not in words. In sound. In a scream. I don't know what finally broke inside me. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the years piling up. Maybe it was realizing that if I stayed silent any longer, this would be my entire life. Until it ended. All I know is that something snapped. It was late afternoon. The house was quiet in that heavy way it always was. No TV. No radio. Just the ticking clock in the kitchen. Daniel was helping me from the bed to the chair. Routine. Careful. Low. The same routine I'd lived 1,000 times. Except this time. His hands lingered. And something inside me refused to disappear anymore. My chest tightened. My breath shortened. I tried to speak. The words tangled. Then, without planning it, I screamed. It wasn't a word. It wasn't even intentional. It was raw sound. Pain and fear pushed out of my body all at once. A scream so loud. Scared me. Daniel froze. What the hell are you doing? He hissed. I screamed again. Louder. Longer. My throat burned. My head throbbed. But I didn't stop. Next door, Mrs. Carter was home. Normally, she worked double shifts at the grocery store. We barely crossed paths. That day she was sick. Lying on her couch. Windows open. Later, she told the police she thought someone was dying. She didn't hesitate. She ran outside. And pounded on our door. Daniel answered with that same calm smile. She's fine, he said. Stroke pain. Happens sometimes. Mrs. Carter pushed past him. And she saw me. Bent. Shaking. Tears streaking my face. I couldn't say a word. But my eyes told her everything. She turned to Daniel. This isn't normal, she said. I'm calling 911. Daniel's smile vanished. There's no need for that. She already had her phone out. The paramedics arrived fast. Too fast for Daniel to think. They asked questions. This time Daniel didn't control the room. One of them knelt in front of me. Ma'am, are you safe? I tried to answer. My voice cracked. The paramedic noticed my fear. When Daniel stepped closer. "Sir," he said, "I need you to stand back." That was the first time anyone had ever said that to him. At the hospital, everything changed. The ER doctor spoke directly to me. Daniel tried to answer. The doctor cut him off. "I'm asking her." Daniel protested. Security was called. And just like that, he was escorted out of the room. I watched him leave. And for the first time in years, I felt air in my lungs. The doctor leaned in. "Is someone hurting you?" I couldn't form full sentences, so he asked me to blink. Once for yes, twice for no. "Is a family member responsible?" I blinked once. "Is it your son?" I blinked again. The room went silent. Social worker arrived. Then another doctor. They examined my body. Documented everything. Old injuries. New injuries. Things that didn't match caregiving. They spoke softly. Didn't rush me. Didn't doubt me. For the first time since my stroke, someone believed me. When police questioned Daniel, he stayed calm. Said I was confused. Said strokes caused delusions. Said he'd sacrificed his life for me. He sounded convincing. But evidence doesn't care about charm. The medical reports told a different story. I stayed in the hospital under protection. No visitors allowed without approval. For the first time in years, I slept without fear. I cried not from pain, but from relief. Days later, they arrested him. I wasn't there when it happened. I didn't need to be. I already had what I needed. My voice back. The days after Daniel was removed from my life felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's story. From inside my own body, police officers came and went. Detectives asked questions slowly, carefully. They didn't rush me. They didn't pressure me. They understood something important. People who've been trapped for years don't suddenly remember everything in perfect order. Memory comes back in pieces. A female detective sat beside my bed every afternoon. Her name was Officer Ramirez. She spoke softly, never interrupted. When I got tired, she stopped. When I cried, she waited. She told me something that stuck with me. "What happened to you didn't happen overnight. So we're not going to undo it overnight either." For the first time, I wasn't being rushed to heal. Doctors ran tests. They documented everything Daniel had hidden. Untreated injuries. Incorrect medication dosages. Signs of long-term neglect masked as care. Every report added weight to the truth. The picture became impossible to deny. Daniel was charged. Multiple counts. Not just abuse. Exploitation, unlawful confinement, and assault. Hearing those words felt strange. Because for years, I'd thought of myself as weak. Now the law was saying, you were harmed. You were violated. You were trapped. And it wasn't your fault. The court appointed a temporary guardian for me. Her name was Margaret Hale. A distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in decades. When she walked into my hospital room, she cried before saying a word. "I should have found you sooner," she said. I shook my head. "This wasn't your failure," I told her. It was his. Margaret's house was small, quiet. She installed rails, cleared space for my walker. She asked before touching me, before helping me stand. That alone healed something deep inside me. Therapy became routine. Physical therapy, speech therapy, trauma therapy. Recovery wasn't fast. Some days I took 2 steps forward. Other days 1 step back. But every step was mine. The trial took time. Months turned into years. Daniel never once apologized. He claimed confusion, mental illness, stress. The court didn't buy it. Witnesses spoke. Medical experts testified. And then, finally, the verdict, guilty. When the judge read the sentence, I didn't feel joy. I felt something quieter. Closure. The kind that doesn't shout, but settles. After the trial, the world slowly opened again. I joined a stroke support group, then a trauma survivors group. Listening to other women speak helped me find my own voice again. One day during therapy, my fingers moved. Just a little. The therapist smiled like it was a miracle. To me it was proof. I wasn't done. I started walking again. First with help. Then with a cane. Then slowly on my own. Every step felt like reclaiming ground he once controlled. Years passed. Life didn't return to what it was. But it became something better. Something honest. People think justice is loud. They imagine handcuffs, courtrooms, someone finally saying sorry. But real justice is quieter than that. Sounds like waking up without fear. Like breathing without checking the door. Like choosing your own clothes. And knowing no one will question it. That's what my life slowly became. After the trial, Margaret stayed by my side. She never tried to fix me. She didn't rush healing. Or demand strength. She understood something most people don't. When someone survives years of control, choice itself becomes medicine. So she gave me choices. What to eat. When to rest. Whether I wanted company or silence. Every small decision stitched me back together. Physical recovery was slow. Painful. Some mornings my body refused to cooperate. Some nights my mind replayed memories I wished would stay buried. But therapy helped. Not the kind where someone tells you to move on. The kind where they say, what happened to you mattered. Where they let you grieve. The years that were stolen. Eventually I started volunteering. At a community center. Nothing big. Just sitting with people. Who felt forgotten. Stroke survivors. Abuse survivors. Women who'd lost their voices. I didn't give advice. I listened. And that turned into something else. I started learning about herbs. Natural remedies. Simple things. Teas for sleep. Balms for aching joints. Oils that calmed anxiety. Felt good to help without control. Without obligation. Just care. By the time I opened my small shop, I was in my 70s. Most people my age were slowing down. I was just beginning. They called me Miss Ellie. Said I had kind eyes. Calming voice. If only they knew how hard those things were earned. Years passed. I almost forgot Daniel existed. Almost. Then one afternoon, while I was restocking shelves, I heard a voice that made my blood run cold. Mom! I didn't turn around right away. Already knew. He looked smaller. Thinner. Time hadn't been kind to him. He leaned on a cane. His hands shook. He told me he was dying. A degenerative illness. Said he had no one. No money. No place to go. He cried. And for just a moment, felt the old pull. The guilt. The conditioning. The voice that whispered. You owe him. But healing teaches you something powerful. Teaches you to pause. To listen to your body. And my body wasn't afraid anymore. It was calm. I looked at him. And spoke clearly. Lowly. The way I wished I'd been able to years ago. I know exactly who you are, I said. And I know who I am now. He begged. Said he'd changed. Said he needed me. That word again. Need. I told him the truth. You didn't need me back then. You wanted control. And I don't give that to anyone anymore. He didn't understand. So I said the words. That ended everything. I forgive myself. Not you. I asked him to leave. And this time, he did. I locked the door, sat down, and cried. Not from pain. From relief. From knowing the cycle had ended. Later I heard he was placed in a public care facility. Dependent. Alone. Waiting on strangers. Life has a strange sense of balance. Today I still walk with a cane. My left hand isn't perfect. But my life is mine. I speak at support groups now. I tell women one thing. Survival is not weakness. And choosing yourself is not cruelty. If you're listening to this, and something inside you feels trapped, please hear me. Your voice matters. Your instincts matter. And it is never too late to reclaim your life. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. This is where my story ends. And where my life finally began. That if this story moved you, like the video so others can hear it. Subscribe for more real stories of survival. And remember, freedom doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes comes quietly.